The Israel-Iran détente is unlikely to last. The recent calm between Israel and Iran may appear to signal de-escalation, but in reality, it is little more than a temporary pause in a long and dangerous rivalry. Regional and strategic indicators suggest that this fragile détente is unlikely to endure, and when it collapses, the next confrontation could be far more destructive than previous ones. For decades, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has built his foreign policy around a hard-line stance against Iran. He has consistently warned that a nuclear-armed Iran would pose an existential threat to Israel, particularly given Tehran's open hostility toward the Jewish state. The chants of death to Israel and symbolic countdown clocks in Tehran have only reinforced that perception. From shadow war to direct conflict, Israel and Iran fought a covert shadow war for many years, but that conflict turned increasingly overt after the October 7, 2023 attack carried out by Iran-backed Hamas. Tensions escalated into 3 rounds of direct confrontation, culminating in a limited but intense 12-day war in June 2024. During that conflict, Iranian missile strikes killed at least 33 people in Israel, injured thousands more, and caused damage estimated at over $1.5 billion. Israeli and U.S. air defense systems prevented far greater devastation, but the war exposed vulnerabilities, particularly Israel's dwindling stockpiles of advanced missile interceptors, such as the Arrow system. Why the fighting paused? The decision to step back from immediate escalation was driven by practical considerations on both sides. Israel faced interceptor shortages and reduced U.S. military presence in the region. At the same time, Iran was grappling with severe internal unrest fueled by inflation, economic hardship, and widespread dissatisfaction with the regime. In this context, an informal understanding reportedly emerged. Neither side would strike the other directly, and regional actors, along with quiet diplomacy, helped persuade U.S. President Donald Trump to refrain from launching strikes on Iran. However, analysts widely view this arrangement as a tactical pause rather than a strategic breakthrough. Rising threats and renewed preparations. Israel's attention has now returned to 2 core concerns: Hezbollah and Iran's long-term military ambitions. Despite Israeli operations in Lebanon that killed thousands of Hezbollah fighters, the group remains heavily armed and financially supported by Tehran. Meanwhile, Israel is accelerating production of Arrow interceptors and testing the new Arrow 4 missile defense system, signaling preparations for future conflict. Iran, for its part, has not abandoned its nuclear aspirations. Intelligence assessments indicate that while key nuclear facilities were severely damaged last summer's strikes, Tehran is rebuilding and possibly dispersing its nuclear infrastructure. Reports of a deeply buried new site known as Pickaxe Mountain have raised further alarm in Jerusalem. International dimensions. The situation is further complicated by Iran's growing ties with major powers. Russia has publicly defended Iran's right to a civilian nuclear program and signed a billion-dollar deal to build nuclear reactors in the country. China, meanwhile, has reportedly supplied materials linked to Iran's missile program and remains heavily dependent on Iranian oil exports. These relationships could embolden Tehran and increase the stakes of any future confrontation. Preemption over deterrence. Israel's post-October 7th strategic mindset favors preemptive action over deterrence. Israeli leaders increasingly believe that allowing Iran to rebuild its missile, nuclear, or unconventional weapons capabilities would pose an unacceptable risk. Senior Israeli officials have openly warned that Israel is prepared to strike Iranian targets near and far if necessary. With Israel entering an election year in 2026, domestic politics also play a role. Netanyahu's leadership and that of any future government will likely continue to prioritize security guarantees over diplomatic restraint. A wider and more dangerous war. If another war breaks out, it may not resemble last year's brief confrontation. Iran's nuclear materials are believed to be more mobile, its facilities more deeply buried, and its weapons programs more dispersed. Any attempt to neutralize these assets could require prolonged air campaigns and potentially U.S. involvement, significantly expanding the scope of the conflict. Conclusion. While uncertainty remains a defining feature of Middle Eastern politics, current trends point toward renewed escalation rather than lasting peace. The Israel-Iran détente appears fragile and temporary. When it breaks, the next conflict may be larger, longer, and far more destabilizing, not just for the region, but for the global order.